Have you ever had the unsettling feeling that no matter what you achieve, no matter what roles you play, something inside you remains untouched, unknown, like a voice you hear faintly behind a thick wall? That wall is not external. It's not built by society, by parents, or by circumstance. It's built by you. And until you understand that, you will stay lost, no matter how successful, admired, or loved you become. Carl Jung didn't sugarcoat this truth. He saw it everywhere. People desperate to feel whole, but unwilling to cross the one threshold that could actually lead them there. They chase identities like costumes: the good child, the strong leader, the loyal partner, the wise friend. But these are not the self. They are masks, crafted to survive the gaze of others. And the longer you wear them, the harder it becomes to remember that they were masks in the first place. Most people will never find themselves because they are not actually looking for themselves. They are looking for a better version of the character they have agreed to play. This is why therapy, self-help, even philosophy often fail to reach the core. Because real transformation doesn't start with self-improvement. It starts with self-confrontation. And that is a brutal, lonely, disorienting process, one that few are willing to endure. Jung called this the path of individuation, not the polishing of the mask, but the dismantling of it, not becoming better at life as you know it, but realizing that the life you know is a story, half written by fears you refuse to face. The self, the true self, is not something you create. It is something you uncover, something that was there before the world told you who you should be. And reaching it requires a kind of courage most people aren't even taught to imagine, because it demands that you look into the places you have spent your whole life avoiding. Your anger, your envy, your cruelty, your fear, your emptiness. Not to eliminate them, not to surgically remove your flaws, but to recognize them as part of you, to integrate them, to realize that the same energy that makes you resentful could also make you fiercely just, that the same instincts you label as bad are the raw material for authenticity, strength, and depth. But who wants to hear that? It's far easier to believe that goodness is about rejecting darkness altogether. It's far easier to label the unacceptable parts of yourself as not me, and to project them onto others, the enemy, the rival, the toxic people, always someone else. This is why most people live trapped inside the mirror maze of their own defenses, never realizing that every accusation, every resentment, every fear they hurl at the world is a reflection of themselves. Jung understood this bitter paradox. The more you deny your own darkness, the more you are controlled by it. And so the wall grows thicker, not because the world conspires against you, but because you conspire against yourself. You can see it in the eyes of people who rage against others' weaknesses while hiding their own. You can hear it in the endless chase for external validation. You can feel it in the emptiness that follows every short-lived victory. The pursuit of self without the acceptance of shadow is a pursuit of a phantom. You do not find yourself by climbing higher, by achieving more, by impressing others. You find yourself by descending into the basement of your own mind, into the memories you swore you'd forget, into the fears you swore you'd conquer by ignoring them. It is not a path lined with encouragement. It is a path lined with doubt, fear, and loneliness. And that's why most people turn back before they ever begin. They cling to roles, to approval, to the comfort of being seen, even if what is seen is a lie. Because facing yourself without the mask feels like death. In a way, it is. It is the death of who you thought you were. And yet, paradoxically, it is also the first breath of who you really are. This is the beginning. This is the first betrayal of the fake self. And it is only the beginning. The human mind is a master of survival. Not by fighting, not always by running, but by forgetting. Forgetting what hurts. Forgetting what questions too much. Forgetting what threatens the delicate balance between who you are and who you pretend to be. Carl Jung saw it clearly. People aren't trapped by chains. They are trapped by comfort. The comfort of familiar pain, the comfort of recognizable lies, the comfort of staying small enough to be accepted. Comfort seduces you into stagnation. It tells you that as long as you are liked, you are alive. It tells you that as long as you are successful by someone else's standards, you are succeeding. It tells you that discomfort is danger, that doubt means you are lost, that anger, sadness, confusion are signs of failure rather than signs of waking up. And so, layer by layer, the self you could have become is smothered under the self you were trained to maintain. Think about it. When was the last time you questioned your own goals, your own dreams? When was the last time you asked yourself, who decided this was what I wanted? Most people never do, because questioning too deeply means destabilizing everything you have built on borrowed ideas. It means realizing that you wanted what you were taught to want, that your ambitions are often just echoes, that your fears are hand-me-downs. And if you admit that, if you really admit it, the entire map of your life starts to blur. Who are you, if not the child of expectations? Who are you, if not the sum of your performances? It is easier, infinitely easier, to stay asleep inside the dream of who you are supposed to be, to add decorations to the mask rather than remove it. Comfort offers this dream, and comfort demands loyalty. Betray comfort, and you betray the social contract you never even realized you signed, the agreement to be what the world needs you to be, not what you really are. This is why people resist deep inner work, not because they are lazy, not because they are weak, because they are terrified. Terrified that the life they built might have been built on a foundation of fear, mimicry, and survival. Terrified that the relationships they maintain are with people who never knew the real them. Terrified that if they take off the mask, no one will stay. Jung knew this terror. He knew that real individuation, real becoming, isn't a private victory. It's a public risk, because you don't just change in silence. You start to sound different. You start to act different. You disturb the comfortable illusions around you. People will say you've changed. People will accuse you of betrayal, arrogance, selfishness, not because you wronged them, but because you revealed how much of their relationship with you was based on who you were pretending to be. This is why finding yourself feels like losing the world. You will lose friends who liked the performance, not the performer. You will lose opportunities that required compliance. You will lose the certainty that used to numb you. And in that losing, if you are willing, you will start to find something else. The faint outline of a self that was never built to please. A self that does not fit neatly into categories. A self that does not seek permission to exist. A self that remembers what it was before it was taught to forget. But reaching this point requires a sacrifice most people are unwilling to make, the sacrifice of comfort. Not just external comfort, money, status, praise, but internal comfort, the comfort of being understood by the average mind, the comfort of not standing out, the comfort of belonging to the group without tension. Because real growth, Jung warned, requires tension. It requires being misunderstood. It requires being alone, not out of bitterness, but out of necessity. You cannot find yourself if you refuse to leave the places where you are most accepted for being someone you're not. You cannot become whole while clinging to the fragments others have assigned to you. Comfort whispers, stay. The soul whispers, go. And every step you take away from comfort feels like dying. But every step you take toward your true self feels like being born. The choice is always yours. But understand, the more you postpone it, the heavier the mask becomes. The thicker the walls grow, the quieter the voice inside you gets. Until one day, you might wake up and realize it isn't that you can't find yourself. It's that you stopped listening for the one who was calling you home. The greatest battles are not fought outside. They happen silently, invisibly, inside your mind. Carl Jung knew it well. The journey to the true self is not a path you walk. It's a war you endure. And the enemy is not society. It's not even your circumstances. It's the parts of yourself you don't want to meet, the anger you deny, the envy you hide, the fear you laugh away, the guilt you bury under accomplishments. These aren't random flaws. They are signals. They are the messages of a self that refuses to be silenced. The problem is that most people don't see the messages. They see threats. When anger rises, they think it means failure. When envy stings, they think it means weakness. When fear paralyzes, they think it means brokenness. But Jung taught that every dark emotion is a doorway, not a wall. A door, and what lies behind that door is not destruction. It's transformation. Because you cannot change what you do not first accept. You cannot heal what you refuse to touch. You cannot claim your strength while hiding from your wounds. The modern world doesn't teach you that. It teaches you to manage emotions, to suppress instincts, to maintain the performance. Smile more, work harder, think positive. But what happens when the soul refuses to stay silent? When no amount of success, affirmation, or distraction can quiet the sense that something essential has been left behind? You face a choice, and this choice is brutal. Do you continue building higher walls to contain the chaos inside you, or do you turn around and walk straight into it? Most people choose the walls, and so they live lives that look whole on the outside but crumble slowly within. They excel in careers that leave them numb. They build families that look perfect but feel hollow. They wear smiles that cost them their authenticity. Because it's easier to be admired than to be real. It's easier to be successful than to be whole. It's easier to be everything for everyone else than to be something true for yourself. But the cost is devastating. You don't just lose connection to others, you lose connection to the one person you are guaranteed to live with for the rest of your life, yourself. Jung described this split as a psychic wound, a fracture that separates the mask from the self, growing wider with every compromise, every lie, every moment you pretend you are fine. And over time, that fracture becomes your prison. You start mistaking the mask for the man. You start defending the performance instead of confronting the pain. You start believing that the person you are when no one is watching is the enemy, not the original. And so the war intensifies. It's not loud. It's not visible. It's the quiet, daily erosion of soul. Every time you agree to what you don't believe in. Every time you suppress the question you know you should ask. Every time you hide the part of you that aches to be known. It wears you down until you wake up one day, years later, with the haunting realization you lived your whole life as a stranger to yourself. You fulfilled expectations, but abandoned your own nature. You chased achievements but lost your compass. You built an image but never met the person living behind it. And at that point, no amount of success can fill the void, because what you lost wasn't external. It was internal. The voice you stopped listening to, the dreams you called foolish, the instincts you drowned in reason, the true self, buried but not dead, waits. It waits behind the anger, the sadness, the fear. It waits behind the broken pieces you tried so hard to hide. And it will keep waiting, not because it is weak, but because it is timeless. You can postpone the war. You can deny the fracture. You can decorate the mask 1,000 times over, but the true self will not leave you. It will only grow louder, heavier, more undeniable, until you finally choose to turn inward. And when you do, if you do, you will not be greeted with blame. You will be greeted with a mirror, not a mirror showing who you should be, not a mirror reflecting the expectations of others, but a mirror showing the only thing that ever mattered, who you were before you forgot. Finding yourself is not a moment. It's not a burst of inspiration or a single revelation. It's a slow, painful crossing, a threshold few even recognize, and fewer still survive intact. Carl Jung knew that individuation, becoming your true self, isn't a matter of willpower alone. It demands a death, not of your body, but of the false self you spent a lifetime building. The ego, the polished identity, the carefully crafted persona, they all have to shatter, not because they are evil, but because they are too small. The self that calls to you is not interested in the polished version you present to the world. It wants the raw, broken, honest you, the you who trembles, who doubts, who rages, who loves fiercely and fears deeply, the you who doesn't fit neatly into any category, the you who remembers that life is not about perfection, but about truth, and that terrifies most people, because it feels like annihilation. To let go of the identity you have depended on, the image you have defended, feels like stepping into a void, into nothingness. If I am not who they see, then who am I? If I am not who I thought I was, then what remains? These are not philosophical questions. They are existential screams. Most turn back at this point. They sense the edge of the abyss and recoil. They retreat into familiar roles. They reinforce the mask. They tell themselves that maybe authenticity is overrated, that maybe comfort is enough, that maybe real change is impossible. And so they settle. They settle for a life that feels half-lived. They settle for relationships that are safe but hollow. They settle for careers that numb rather than ignite. They settle for a self that fits in but never feels at home. Jung called this spiritual starvation, a hunger not for more money, more status, more things, but for realness, a hunger for a life that tastes like truth. But the price is steep, because finding yourself is not an addition. It's a subtraction. You don't find yourself by adding layers of wisdom, achievement, or insight. You find yourself by stripping away everything that is not you. The borrowed ambitions, the inherited fears, the conditioned behaviors, the false loyalties, the unnecessary guilt. Layer by layer, illusion by illusion, you dismantle the architecture of a life built for survival, not for truth. And as you do, you realize something devastating. Much of what you thought was you was never truly yours. The dreams that were applauded, the ambitions that were praised, the fears that were tolerated, the loves that were approved, all borrowed, all inherited, all accepted without question. The real you, the silent, persistent you, waited beneath it all, not competing, not demanding, just existing, quiet, steady, enduring. And when you finally reach that hidden core, you don't find a superhero. You don't find a polished sage. You find something much more human. A child. The child who knew wonder before fear. The child who spoke truth before shame. The child who dreamed without limits before society taught you to shrink. That child is not weak. That child is pure strength, uncorrupted, undivided, whole. And bringing that child back to life is not regression. It is resurrection. But resurrection comes at a cost. You must let the old self die, the self that sought validation, the self that feared rejection, the self that accepted being half alive because it was easier than standing alone. Jung warned, the privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are. But privilege does not mean ease. Privilege does not mean popularity. Privilege does not mean comfort. It means walking through fire. It means losing what was never really yours. It means risking everything you think you are for the chance to become something real. And that is why most people never cross the threshold, not because they are incapable, but because they are unwilling to burn down the house of lies they have called home for too long. They would rather decorate the prison than escape it. They would rather polish the mask than remove it. They would rather be accepted by others than accepted by themselves. But if you are willing, truly willing, the threshold awaits. It doesn't shout. It doesn't seduce. It doesn't bargain. It waits, silent, unmoving, unimpressed. And when you finally step across it, you do not become someone new. You become someone ancient, someone who was there before you forgot. You do not add. You return, not to innocence, but to truth. And that truth, raw, inconvenient, undeniable, is the birthplace of a life that is truly your own. There is a silence that follows the crossing. It is not the silence of loneliness. It is the silence of arrival. For the first time, you are not reaching. You are not chasing approval. You are not trying to fit into someone else's idea of who you should be. You are simply there, present, real, undeniable. Carl Jung understood what few ever do. When you find yourself, the world does not throw you a parade. It does not hand you a crown. It barely even notices. Because what you have found is invisible to the external world. It cannot be posted. It cannot be marketed. It cannot be validated by likes, applause, or admiration. It exists where no one else can see, where only you can feel. And that is why it is real. You walk differently, not with arrogance, not with defensiveness, but with a quiet certainty that needs no confirmation. You no longer move to be seen. You no longer speak to be heard. You no longer perform to be loved. You exist, not because you are perfect, but because you are whole. The fractures remain. The wounds remain. The doubts flicker at the edges, but they no longer define you. You are not the anger you once suppressed. You are not the fear you once hid. You are not the mask you once polished. You are the one who passed through them, the one who bore their weight without surrender, the one who stayed standing when every voice, internal and external, screamed for you to turn back. This is why the journey matters. Not for the accolades, not for the transformation others can admire, but for the unshakable truth that no one can take from you. You know who you are. And in a world addicted to forgetting, to performing, to conforming, that knowledge is a quiet revolution. It changes how you love, no longer from need but from wholeness. It changes how you suffer, no longer as a victim but as a witness. It changes how you live, no longer chasing meaning but embodying it. You will still feel alone sometimes. You will still be misunderstood. You will still lose people who preferred the mask. But you will not lose yourself again. Not because life is easy now, but because you have found the one thing that can endure through anything: your real self. The child you abandoned, the voice you silenced, the soul you forgot, alive, present, unbroken. This is not a finish line. This is not a final victory. It is a beginning. The beginning of a life that is not a performance. The beginning of relationships that are not negotiations. The beginning of work that is not slavery to ambition. The beginning of being fully, painfully, beautifully human. Jung never promised that this path would make life easier. He promised only that it would make life real. And maybe, in the end, that is all we truly want. Not more comfort, not more success, not more applause, just a life that feels like our own. If you have heard the call, if you have felt the silent tug inside you, don't turn away. Don't run back to comfort. Don't apologize for the hunger you cannot quiet. Trust it. Follow it. Because in a world where most people will never find themselves, the greatest rebellion is simply this: to refuse to live as a stranger to your own soul.